Good morning. My name is Ken Huskins, and I'm a member of the Adult Education Council, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's forum. Welcome to this annual forum that honors Earth Day. The forum is a collaborative effort between the Social Justice Ministry Team, Eco-Justice Ministry Team, and the Adult Ed Council. The theme this year is food justice, land use, and building community. We are pleased to welcome speakers from two local organizations that are actively working to address these concepts of food justice, land use, and building community. They are Wedge Community Co-op and Urban Roots. Wedge Community Co-op is a community-owned grocery store specializing in local and organic foods, and with two retail stores in Minneapolis and a distribution warehouse in St. Paul. Wedge supports local agriculture and locally made products to empower people, communities, and our planet. Urban Roots' mission is to cultivate and empower youth through nature, healthy food, and community. Urban Roots provides paid internships to youth on the east side of St. Paul. Youth interns develop leadership, entrepreneurial skills, and life skills through the Urban Roots Market Garden. Conservation and cook fresh programs connecting them to one another and to the world around them. Today, Westminster's very own Tim Delmont, a Wedge Co-op member, is stepping in for our invited speaker, Chelsea Korth, who is the digital marketing leader at Wedge Co-op. Unfortunately, Chelsea is ill and could not be here with us today. Tim also serves as a member of the Westminster Adult Ed Council. Skyler Hawkins is a farm director for the Market Garden program at Urban Roots. Market Garden youth interns plant, maintain, and harvest small-scale crop production within Urban Roots local gardens. Skyler has worked on community-supported agriculture with both international and domestic market gardens from Spain to Scotland to Duluth and now in St. Paul. And a warm welcome to both of you, gentlemen. Before we begin, a few logistical items. We ask you to hold questions and comments until the end of both presentations. For those attending in person in Westminster Hall, raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you so all, including those on the live stream, can hear your question or comment. For those attending on live stream, please submit your question or comment in the live stream chat, and we'll monitor the chat and do our best to raise your question or comment. As part of an ongoing effort to promote respectful conversations, the social justice team has established guidelines for our forums that you now see on the screen. Certainly, I'd just like to highlight the first one, equity of voices. We benefit from hearing a variety of voices, and let's leave the room available for other perspectives. Please take a moment to review quickly the other guidelines. Thank you. I'll offer a prayer before we begin. Let us pray. Holy One, God of justice, breathe into us today a spirit of curiosity and humility. Help us engage with mindfulness, listening carefully to voices of our presenters and attendees. Guide our speech and our self-awareness so we may honor the divine in all people. Amen. Now I'll welcome Tim Delmont to the podium.
I can't resist. Good morning. Good morning. So much fun to do that. I mean, you never have the opportunity, or very rarely, and then there's this response, and you're all smiling. It's just wonderful to be here as a rep from the Wedge. I've been a so-called business owner and customer for almost 20 years at the Wedge, as well as at some other co-ops. And I'm also glad to be able to share with you this morning the notes that we have from Chelsea Korth, with whom we talked yesterday. And Chelsea really wanted to come, but she's very sick, and she told me her 2-year-old daughter is sick, and by now probably her husband is sick. So you know that. It's not a good situation, but it is a privilege to be here with you, and I'll try to do my best in reading the notes that we have from her. So the first thing is, what is a co-op? She says that it's a business owned and governed by its customers, by its owners, one of whom stands in front of you. Our purpose isn't to accumulate profits for investors, but rather to meet the goals and aspirations of our community. And the community in this sense is a mix of neighborhoods. Happens to be in Minneapolis, but it could be in the suburbs if there was a similar co-op there. Any surplus that we generate is reinvested in the business and returned to our owners at the end of the year. And as an owner customer, I'm able to vote each year on the board of directors who set the overall policy for the organization. As an owner, too, we're asked if we wish to respond to surveys and inquiries about the nature of the food products and services that are offered at the co-op, and really about the culture of the place. How do people feel about it? How do customers feel about it? So that's fun to be able to give that kind of feedback. And the last thing is a benefit beyond the participation, and that is, as an owner customer, perhaps you might consider this, we get a 5 to 10% break on the cost of sales, our own purchases of products over the course of the year. So it's an engagement. It's an organization that promotes democratic governance. That's not what we find in all organizations these days. It has 3 locations. May I ask you, have any of you been to either of the retail locations on either Lyndale? Oh, look at this is terrific. Since I'm the stand-in, if you have questions, many of you may have the answers to those questions that I have no clue about. So we'll make some progress on that course. The Wedge Co-op is on Lyndale. It's just half a block south of Franklin and Lyndale. I just can't. You know, when you leave today, out the door, go to the Nicollet Mall, drive a couple blocks to Franklin, and take a right, and you're there. If you need some produce for your lunch, if you need something for dinner, consider a quick stop at the Wedge, because it's so close, and you won't be disappointed with the quality of the food that you might buy there. This particular retail was started in 1974, so it's over 50 years old and still going strong. The other retail is at Linden Hills. Some of you may live in that neighborhood, or the Linden, if you're not a Minneapolis resident, Linden Hills is on the west side of Lake Harriet, quite accessible. And it was formed in 1976. And Chelsea says that the brave folks who started it had $387 in their bank account at the time, almost 50 years ago, but they made it work. They made it work. And then in 2017, less than a decade ago, the 2 retails merged together. And the third player in this organization is called the Twin Cities Co-op Partners, Twin City Co-op Partners, and it's in St. Paul, just off of University and Vandalia. Some of you may know that area. It's a certified organic distributor of produce and dairy and local grocery products. And on any given day, there are 250 different kinds of produce in this huge warehouse served by the many, many trucks that we have this slide on. I don't know how you get 250 products, produce products, but they have them there. And what's kind of amazing to me is that they distribute from there 230,000 pounds of food to local hunger relief organizations in the last year. 250,000 pounds in 1 year. To me, that's amazing. It's something I didn't know about. And whatever is not donated to hunger relief organizations is composted. So if you do go to Lindale at some post, you might even see it, because the composting is done both at this organization, the warehouse, but also at the retail on Lindale. We asked both Chelsea and Skyler 3 questions in preparation for today's session. The first question was, and I should go to it, what's the most challenging situation that you're now facing? And Chelsea's response was to say, our challenge and opportunity, and maybe this isn't a surprise to you, is to compete with the conventional grocers in our neighborhoods. So that's our friends at Barley's and Lund's and you name it, Target probably too, for most shoppers. She says, with so much unknown right now, consumers have a lot of anxiety from the economy and pricing and other things. And they're shopping at a retailer that they hope match their values. And of course, her position is that the co-ops they hope the co-ops will do that. A few benefits of the natural and organic foods that the co-ops provide include better health conditions for farm workers, less pollution given the techniques of growing, less, and maybe this is the most important in some ways, less carbon coming into the atmosphere because of the nature of the agricultural techniques that they use. And she says that for every $100 that's spent, that you and I or others would spend buying these foods, $70 remains in the local economy. So most of it's in the local economy, which is what this slide is intending to suggest. The food that the co-ops buy, the 2 retailers, are from 30 local farmers. So it keeps those farmers afloat at a time when large corporate farming is the direction where farming is going in America. So 30 local farmers are helped. And this was something that I didn't know about, but in addition to the 30 local farmers, or the 30 local farmers create over 450 kinds of products. So when we go through the average grocery store, I've often wondered, oh my God, where does this all come from? Well, it comes from all kinds of farmers and from all over the world, but the co-ops, Wedge and others, get it chiefly from local farmers, not from beyond, not from folks in Mexico or Chile or wherever. So the second question that we asked of our speakers was, well, what do you consider to be a major achievement for yourself, and for the company? And what Chelsea said was that the most meaningful achievements is our community effort called Change Matters. And one of the things she points out is that for decades, the co-ops have been raising funds for local nonprofit organizations. Now, these aren't necessarily food-related organizations. These are organizations that provide nonprofit services. So the co-ops have raised over $1 million since 2017. And each month, the Wedge co-ops provide a $10,000 grant to a selected nonprofit to use in any way that nonprofit wishes to do. The thing that she wanted me to emphasize that was this following: our commitment supports our greater mission of rebuilding and investing in our neighborhoods, addressing the hunger crisis, and uplifting the communities that deserve support, particularly Black, Indigenous, immigrant, refugee, and other communities of color. So Change Matters, some of what they do. We also asked Skyler and Chelsea, what kind of collaborative effort are you continuing to do? And can you tell us something about one of your newer achievements in collaboration? And she said that she wanted to emphasize what the Wedge does with the Southern Anoka Community Assistance Food Shelf. And this is a food shelf that serves the North and Northeast Minneapolis community. And what they've done, what that food shelf has done with its $10,000 grant, in fact, this was last month, they were able to purchase, and kind of incredibly, I think, 90,000 pounds of food for people in need who otherwise would not have been served. And she pointed out to us that the demand for food shelves is skyrocketing across the state of Minnesota. Last year, there were in 2024, there were 9 million visits to food shelves in our state, and that was 1.4 million visits then in 2023. 9 million visits, 9 million. So certainly people are making repetitive visits, but that's a huge cross-section of our population that's in need, and the Wedge is trying to help serve that need. And the last thing that we want to mention as an example of collaboration is that the two Wedge retailers deal with an organization some of you may know called Reuse Minnesota. And that's a mix of organizations across our state who are trying to find ways to reuse, refurbish, resell a variety of products that we all use to some extent or another, so that it's not going into landfills, it's not getting burnt, they can be reused in some fashion that makes a difference for people. And the examples that she mentioned include, and this is new to me, and I suspect it might be new to you, but the products that could be refurbished or resold or repaired include things such as furniture, wood, aluminum, steel, cardboard, paper, flooring, clothing, and even gas ranges. So there are different Reuse Minnesota locations across the Twin Cities that are the beneficiaries of this refurbishing of products and the reselling of these products. And she mentioned one in particular, which is that Reuse is taking T-shirts, maybe not this great one, this fancy one, but older T-shirts, and creating produce bags that you can use in stores for carrying produce. I think that's kind of remarkable, isn't it? And so that's one of the, Reuse Minnesota is one of the areas in which the Web is helping in a variety of ways. And I think that's about it from the Wedge, except obviously you can learn a lot more if you go to their website or their Facebook page, if you wish, or any of the other social media sites. And then Chelsea gave me a variety of things that are out on the tables. If you have a minute before you go, this is their newsletter. And if you're interested in being an owner customer, someone who does the things that are easy to do, it's a few dollars a year to join, and then away you go with whatever you want. And there are a few products out there, too, that might be of interest to your grandkids or your kids or grandkids who are small, sort of coloring books kinds of things. So thanks a lot for your attention, and good to be here with you this morning.
Thank you, Tim. I'll now ask to come to the podium Skyler Hawkins.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name's Skyler Hawkins, and I'm the farm director at Urban Roots. And I'm really curious if folks have heard of Urban Roots. Can you raise your hand if you're familiar with it? Okay, that's a lot of folks. So I'm going to get into it a little bit and fill you in on some things you might not already know about. I've worked at Urban Roots for about 6 years now. I started as the farm manager at Urban Roots, so I was really on the ground, growing the food and doing a lot of the youth programming. I still do those things, but my position has changed a little bit recently to be the farm director. And that's mostly to get to be able to explore some of the things that we'll talk about today. So just to get things started, Urban Roots is an organization on the east side of St. Paul. Our mission is to cultivate and empower youth through nature, healthy food, and community. So we've been around since 1996. We've been providing paid internships to youth on the east side of St. Paul. And I think the paid internship part is really important to us. They're not volunteering, it's a job, and we want them to be compensated for their involvement with us. So youth interns develop leadership, entrepreneurial, and life skills through our market garden, conservation, and cook fresh programs. Each year we host 80 to 100 youth interns. Their ages are 14 to 21, typically high school aged youth, and they participate in our progressive, tiered programming, connecting to one another and to the world around them. A little bit about the youth we work with. They all live in St. Paul, and they're 14 to 21, all qualify for free or reduced lunch or have significant barriers to employment. We also serve our extensive alumni network, so we really try and keep in touch with youth who kind of graduate out of our program, and not just say, see ya, that was great. And we have a variety of community-based initiatives to increase access to nature and healthy food. I'm not going to read this out loud, but you can kind of take a look and kind of get a sense of the youth that we're working with in terms of their racial and ethnic backgrounds. It's a very diverse group of youth. And have folks spent much time on the east side of St. Paul in general? Cool. Yeah, I hadn't a ton before I started working there, to be honest, but it's an amazing place. So I talked about the 3 programs that we have. I'm going to kind of give you some background into what those look like. So conservation youth interns support and improve green spaces around the east side of St. Paul, and they participate in the restoration of local parks through removal of invasive plant material, native seed collection, and installation of native plants. And again, when we just got done interviewing, I think 45 new youth who are going to work with us this summer. And one of the questions we asked them is, which of these 3 programs speaks the most to you? What excites you the most? What do you want to become an expert in? What do you feel the most curious about? So they're going to choose which program they want to invest in. They do a lot of installation of maintenance of rain and pollinator gardens. They participate in citizen science projects. It looks like insect surveys, water sampling, forest inventories. And they also spend a lot of time in parks that they help to restore. So Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary, Indian Mounds Park, Willowbrook Reserve, Sweet Hollow Park. Those are parks that they're kind of perennially involved in and taking part in long-term restoration projects in. Some pictures just to give you a sense of what it feels like and who these youth are who are participating in that program. In the Market Garden program, which you'll probably hear mostly about today, youth interns plant, maintain, and harvest small-scale crop production within our urban gardens. So we have 6 sites that amount to about 1.5 acres of actual vegetable production space. These sites were vacant before we got there. They were kind of underutilized, and we transitioned them into growing areas. We grow about 15,000 pounds of produce every year. We distribute that in a number of ways I'll tell you about a little later, and we also do a lot of stewarding community garden spaces, and I'll get more into that too. Here's what some of our market setups look like, and I'll tell you where you can find those as well. In our Cook Fresh program, so Cook Fresh interns explore the intersection of food, culture, justice, health, and cook with our community. So they're spending a lot of time in the kitchen, they're exploring recipes. With the chef-led series, we invite community chefs, sometimes really amazing big names, to come in and they help us cook a huge community meal with the produce that we grow, and we eat together as a group of about 100 people. And it's getting hard for us all to fit in one room for a meal because we keep growing. It's about creating cultural connections, both through the youth and their community, nutrition and technical schools, and food sovereignty. And a couple things about their experience that I want you to know about. They're here to get certifications that will get them access to different careers. Career exploration, they're at a point in their life where they're really expected to know what they want to do next and how they want to invest their time and energy or money they might not have yet. And so we really want to get them out to different jobs so they can get a sense of, okay, what's it really feel like to be in a lab, 8 hours a day, or do you want to work outside? So, and getting to kind of connect with these people at different jobs just to get a sense of, get their compass pointing in one direction for their next chapter of life. College visits is a big part of that too. Social emotional development, 21st century job skills, and mentoring, both with the staff and to each other. We've got some community outreach opportunities we have going on. We love having groups out to the farm. We love doing cooking classes, and you'll be able to access our food too. So if you're curious about any of those things, definitely follow up with me. So the community gardens has really been a big aspect of our work in the last few years. We have something called the Youth Council at Urban Roots, and that's where youth can kind of opt in to being a part of a council that decides what special projects Urban Roots takes place with. And they decided a number of years ago that they wanted to provide space for community members to grow food. They said, we have all this growing space on the east side of St. Paul, but I think the neighbors here also need space. So we started a community garden with them. That was in, I think, 2018. In 2020, we started another. And this year, we're taking on 2 more that are kind of let go of from the organizations that were originally hosting them. So now we have over 125 families that we provide growing space to on the east side of St. Paul. And it's really exciting, the connections and partnerships that we're building through these neighbors just accessing land through Urban Roots has been really, really amazing. Another exciting thing that kind of came out of that is our Community Seed Mentors program. So on the east side of St. Paul, there's a ton of agricultural knowledge, and we are really trying hard to celebrate that and create space for people to show off what they know. So a way we do that is we kind of connect with 4 neighbors with different cultural backgrounds on the east side of St. Paul, and we say, okay, we would love for the youth to learn from you about what you care about growing and how you grow it. On a production farm. Has anyone farmed much before? Okay, cool. Well, I saw a couple hands. So as we're trying to grow, 15,000 pounds of food and give that lens to youth about what that experience is like, we realize that there's a certain way we need to grow on that scale. And so inviting community members in, giving them space, giving them money to just appreciate the knowledge that they're sharing, they can kind of give youth these different perspectives of how you can grow food, and I think give them a better, well-rounded perspective of how they can approach growing food and having a relationship to their food in general. So it's been really fun getting to provide income to community members in that way, and then these community members get to decide where that food goes at the end of the year too. And this is actually a picture of, has anyone been to the restaurant Vinay in northeast Minneapolis? This is Chef Yi Vang and his mom, actually, who came to the garden to teach us about lemongrass as well, and actually how to preserve it for tea, and also how to cook with cilantro roots, which we hadn't been doing before. So it's these sort of exchanges that are really helping us as staff grow in ways that more align with the east side of St. Paul and the community members too, and in that way kind of show up with the sort of food that people really want to be eating in the community as well. This is another community seed mentor that we've had over the years. This is Manuel, and he grew sesame seeds on his plot. He's from Mexico. He hadn't grown it in Minnesota before, and we all went into the summer thinking, we don't know if the growing season is long enough for this to work here. So it was kind of this gamble, and it worked out. So here we are harvesting with a lot of the youth interns, and we actually dried the sesame seeds and made like a sesame seed candy out of it. It was really fun. I mentioned our food distribution, so where does the 15,000 pounds of food go? It goes a number of places. So we have free weekly community food giveaway sites on the east side of St. Paul that we partner with, and we've actually raised money to just be able to be compensated for food that we do bring to give food away for free to the community. So we're really leaning into that. Anything we don't get rid of in our other ways definitely goes to these free community giveaways. A lot goes home with our youth. They're excited about it. They're more excited about some produce than others, but a lot goes back. Like I mentioned, the Cook Fresh program, we're doing a lot of cooking, so they're cooking with it, those big community meals that we put on. We're starting an East Side Farmers Market this year with a couple other partner organizations, and that's going to be a pay-what-you-can model, which is really exciting to explore. I've been a part of that at a couple other places, and we've always made more money when we do pay-what-we-can, and so that's been a really exciting thing to see. And also, maybe most relevant to this crowd is the Mill City Farmers Market. So we're there every other week, starting on Saturday, June 21st. We always have youth interns there. They love it there. It's a big party, and you should definitely come by. It could be convenient. And yeah, I wanted to show a couple pictures that just sort of give a sense of people in place. So this is Rama and Nana. These are two crew leads, kind of like leadership youth, who had just helped harvest a lot of plums. We have an orchard on the farm too, about 70 fruit trees. So they're finally bearing fruit, and that was really exciting. This is a separate growing space here. We've got a lot of lettuce and onions and leeks. We have a hoop house, so we can extend our season a little bit and grow some warmer season crops. This was when we had hot peppers in the hoop house, a lot of habaneros and jalapenos, and our big field of tomatoes as well. Yet another growing site at Sweet Hollow Cafe. On the left, we've got pak choi and parsley in the springtime. And here are a couple more youth that had just gotten done mulching the garlic that we grow. We have beehives, and we sell honey at the market too. The youth really love that, especially because they have the suits to put on, and it's always an exciting day. And like I said with the orchard, here we are planting some apple trees. We also planted some peach trees most recently too, and those have been doing really well. I wanted to invite everybody to next Saturday. We'll be hosting an event for the St. Paul Art Crawl at our office on the east side of St. Paul. It's from 1 to 5. We'll have a lot of music going on. We'll have local artists there. Youth have spent a lot of their winter with us being creative, doing art projects, making art with some of the plants that we grow, doing a lot of paper mache and bookbinding. A really exciting thing that I would invite you to take a look at on the table outside is we have done a project called Seed Stories. That was a youth storytelling project where they wanted to kind of collect stories from community members about seeds and crops that are especially important to them. So they spent last summer with me and a couple other staff inviting community members in, recording interviews, practicing their interviewing skills, thinking about how to host a conversation in a way that helps people tell their stories, and then edit these videos. They also made a little zine booklet, and that's what's outside that you can take a look at. But it's a really amazing collection of neighbors and community members talking about what seeds are important to them, who taught them about them in their life, what it reminds them of, what they cook with it. So it's really fun, and I invite you to take a peek at that. Yeah, that's a little about Urban Roots. I wanted to just kind of touch on those 3 questions that we were sent as well. So I think the most meaningful achievement of Urban Roots is that it's really a youth-led organization in every sense of the word. I was interviewed by many youth. It was a really interesting, cool interview process, and they had to give their okay for me to work at Urban Roots, and that made me feel really proud of getting that position, and made me want to work there so much that their opinion mattered that much. Again, with the Youth Council, they're deciding on what projects they want to take place at Urban Roots and what difference they want to make in their community. We have 4 former youth interns that are on staff with us, so it's really a place that folks want to stick around. We're always excited when they have something they want to go do. We're very happy for them when they leave, but we're also happy that some see that as such a safe place that they want to keep growing in. We also have 13 youth in transition roles called crew leads at Urban Roots. So that tiered program model that I mentioned before, they might start the first year, it's their first job, they don't know much. The second year they come back, they're mentoring other youth, teaching them what they learned the year before. And pretty soon, every year as we tier it that way, they're ready to take a staff role. So I think that's a pretty unique part of our program too. The most challenging piece for us right now, it is funding. I think, a lot of the funding has changed in the last even couple months. A lot of federal funding is pretty tricky to access right now. So that's always something that we're trying to figure out. A big goal of ours right now is to find a bigger space. Like I said, we have 100 youth that work with us in the summertime, and we have 30 staff, including those youth interns. And so getting everybody in one room, this would be a great room. I wish we had a room like this. We could work with this. But it's really packed. And so a big goal of ours right now is to really find a space that's big enough to host 100 youth, to have separate classroom spaces to dig into the things that they're curious about, a commercial kitchen, a dining space, and just a safe space for youth to be. I think that people, youth have their homes and they have school, and this is sort of a third space in their life. So we really want it to feel like there's room for them to come take up space. And a collaborative effort that we're really excited about, have folks heard of the organization Walk on Teepee, Awanyan Gapi, or Lower Failing Creek Project? They're a native-led organization on the east side of St. Paul, and they help to steward a lot of sacred Dakota sites on the east side of St. Paul. So a lot of those parks actually include that. Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary is one of them. Indian Mound Park is another. And we've worked with them pretty closely to help restore a lot of these sites, which has been really amazing to be involved with. They also, at one of our farm sites that's larger, they've created an indigenous medicine garden that their community can access for ceremony and prayer, nutritional, and also just medicinal purposes. So it's been really cool to create that space with them. And also to learn from what they're growing and how they're growing it, and trying to, as we're restoring other habitat on that land, to kind of take their lead and see what plants are important to them and incorporate those into our plans. Yeah. So it's Walk on Teepee. Yep, Awanyan Gapi. And I can write that down and put that on the table outside too. It's kind of a long name. Yeah, so our partnership with them has been really great. They've also been a part of that community seed mentor program as well. We did a stinging nettle cordage workshop with the youth with them, and that was really fun, and learning about how to harvest plants outside that they see in appropriate ways. So it's been really fun. I think I'll call it there because there's a lot to talk about, and I trust people will have questions, but thank you.
Thank you, Skyler, very much. So now we have time for questions, probably about 10 minutes or 12 minutes worth. And folks will come to you with a microphone.
This is a question for Scott. Could you please explain the term food sovereignty?
Yeah, so food sovereignty, I feel like there's probably longer answers and shorter answers, and I'll do a shorter answer, but I think it kind of refers to people having agency in the food, in what food that they have access to. So, for example, like creating community garden spaces. If there are communities who aren't finding the produce that they like to eat, that is a part of their cultural background that's important to them in grocery stores, they might not have much control or agency over what they're eating. If they have access to a community garden space and they have more control and an agency in what food they can grow, then that'd be an example of more food sovereignty. So I think it's, if food sovereignty is happening, people have access to the sorts of food that are important to them and are meaningful to them.
Other questions in the room?
I'm interested in two things. One, and they're related, the funding. My daughter actually works in a somewhat similar thing in Michigan, and it is the scramble. And you did say you sometimes made more money than you were spending on something. I think it was a sale thing. So if you could just talk about the money issues that are behind this amazing program.
Yeah, so especially the federal grants have not been as available lately. We aren't sure, if we are able to reimburse. A lot of grants, we don't get the money up front, so we have to spend it first and then, apply for reimbursement. So whereas we'd usually be able to get reimbursed for the things that we've spent money on or even, funded positions on, there's not a lot of clarity around whether we'll get that money back from that. For example, I think there's some questions around like U.S. Forestry Service grants that we've gotten that fund a specific position. It's an outreach position, and we do a tree giveaway every year where we realize that on the east side of St. Paul there's very little shade shade coverage with trees, boulevard trees. So we start a lot of trees and propagate trees and give close to 500 trees away to community members for free. And we have a forestry service funded position that does that. And so next year, we don't think that position will exist, So we're trying to find different creative ways to fund these positions that used to rely on federal grants. And luckily, we have a lot of funding from state grants too. I think we're not as in bad of shape as other organizations, but there's a long list of funding sources that we just won't be able to access in future years. Again, with giving the way we were funding how to give free produce away and still get compensated for it to community food giveaway sites, our biggest source of funding for that has been on the chopping block, so that doesn't exist anymore. So just kind of getting creative and finding state funding or from community members is kind of where we're going with that. But
can you just share the kind of nooks and crannies in the government that you go to get this funding? It sounds like it's a real patchwork.
Yeah, so on a state level, the Department of Agriculture, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture has been really supportive of urban farming efforts for sure. Again, the Forestry Service has been really helpful. There's USDA Urban Agriculture Innovation Program, and they're through the USDA. So I think the USDA really has also changed in terms of what funding they can provide.
And I would like to put in a plug to go back and watch the Presbyterian Advocacy Hour from last Thursday, which goes into great detail about how SNAP and other programs are being affected, the food bill, and all of that good stuff.
Thanks, Elena. And you can also, just on that line, you can sign up for those, and Elena's got information on that as well.
I just wondered where the East Side Farmers Market is going to be this year, since I'm on the east side of the cities.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so are folks familiar with East 7th Street? Kind of comes out of downtown St. Paul. So do you know where Sweet Hollow Cafe is? Okay, so across the street, there's a sculpture park there, and it's going to be right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering to what extent you might be able to incorporate regenerative practices and organic practices.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are not certified organic, but we absolutely use organic practices. I think a big part of that is that growing in the city, having 6 plots, it's just sort of like not so much of the recognizable format for growing food that the organic certification program really recognizes. I don't think they would know what to do with what we're doing so much, but we absolutely use organic growing practices and regenerative practices too. We use a lot of cover cropping to incorporate nutrients rather than using fertilizers or anything like that. We don't use any chemicals on our orchard or anything like that. So, but we're always trying to do more with that too, just in terms of tilling less, really wondering when we need to do that and why. And really changing up just our soil amendment practices a lot in the last couple of years to make sure we're not putting in nutrients we don't need, because that'll also amount to polluting waterways nearby too. I could talk a lot about that. That would be a good one to talk about at the table if you're interested.
We do want to encourage you to go to the tables, and I think we may have time, Ken, for one more question possibly, if someone in the room has a burning question.
Have you explored foraging as a way of accessing edible plants and flowers with your students?
Yeah, definitely. And especially with Wakan Tipi Awanyangapi, that organization I mentioned, they've really mentored us a lot in terms of how to do that, especially on the east side of St. Paul, where to go for that, when to go out for that for different plants. Stinging nettle is a big one. Mustard garlic is another, which is actually an invasive species, but you can make great food out of it. A lot of times we are restoring, sites that are not in great shape environmentally, especially in the conservation program. So it might be we're doing remediation efforts for pollution or something. So there's a lot of spaces that we wouldn't necessarily want to harvest food from for that reason. But again, we're kind of trying to, on this blank canvas of this big growing site, incorporate, as we take out invasive species, more of those plants, a lot of rose hips growing. We've inoculated a lot of oyster and shiitake mushrooms and wine cap mushrooms, sweetgrass, things like that. So yeah, we're trying to do more of that and kind of create that space as we go too, so.
Well, let's thank Tyler and Tim again for a great presentation. Okay, so what's coming up? Next week at Adult Education and the Social Justice Forums. In May, for the adult education, programs will resume and conclude our Who Do You Say I Am? Encountering the Newer Testament series with 3 sessions focused on major events that shape the Newer Testament: the resurrection, the ascension and Pentecost, and the second coming. The Social Justice Forum will welcome, and is it Jenna Penn Tracy from Sustainable Responsible Investing, who will discuss ethically aligned and influential decisions we can make to responsibly spend and invest our money. I'll remind you, on your way out, there is a table in Westminster Commons with takeaways, brochures, not only for Urban Roots and for the Wedge, but for some other organizations that we feel are appropriate to include here on Earth Day. And finally, thank you all for coming.